This is summer in the early 60s, 1961, I think. A stalwart crew, my brother Jeffrey, who was then 3 years younger in high school, my mother Christine, my father Manly Williams, and myself, on one of many summer cruises that the family traditionally made in the cruising boats that my father had become addicted to. This summer, the cruise was in Tina, a marvelous Herreshoff ketch, design number 31, a double-ender. It sailed pretty fast and was absolutely beautiful to look at. This is before it had lifelines put on it. A Charlie Noble, my mother on the boom. This boat had only sitting headroom, but we didn't care. There was enough room to sit up down below. You know, we learned to sail a long time before. That red kayak is the first boat in the Williams family. After the war, my father bought it from somebody for $20. And when Jeff and I were kids, we still had it. Hopalong Cassidy sweaters and all. I think we started sailing as early as we could remember. This is Normandy Beach, a town class sloop that my father, I think, learned to sail on. A moth class that they were at that time, I think my mother was 37 years old. My father built a Penguin from a kit in the cellar of our house in East Rahway, and it was the greatest boat. That's our dog Tippy. I built a boat too, just to prove I could do it. Wasn't quite as sleek as the Penguin class frostbite dinghy, which we took everywhere with us, to Cape Cod, down the shore, on a trailer my father made in his backyard, and they used to take naps on the cotton sail. Yes, sir, what a stud growing up. Growing up even more. You know, we were starting to get really good looking, my brother and I. We started sailing larger boats, like Lightning class boats, down the shore. More sail to handle. And it was New Jersey, so we were starting to get tough too, and finally we transmogrified into the perfection of Studley High School students. I think I'm a junior or senior in this picture, and got a new boat. This was our first real late design cruising boat, a Dutch Treat class from Holland. Not a bad looking boat. Had it for 1 or 2 years in high school. Those are my high school buddies and I. Leaked a bit. He was an aggressive guy. He was always moving forward. He was learning about boats, and he wanted to advance. I think he had discovered boats during World War II when his hospital ship was in the Pacific. In any case, he'd come back with the notion that there was something good about the ocean and the sea. And he started from scratch. Jeff and I were kids. We picked it up instantaneously. We were better than him at most things within a few years. I don't really remember this, but I guess we took firearms on board for the fun of it. That's a Smith & Wesson .38 caliber pistol my father had before robbers stole it. You can see the addition of lifelines on Tina. All the summer cruises were the same. We sailed along and sailed along some more. Grew up some. The general idea was that you took a week or maybe 2 weeks or 10 days and went on a cruise on Long Island Sound with your family. Something unheard of today in 2010, but in those days we met lots of cruising boats with families on board, all sort of hanging out together, cooking their own meals and visiting different ports. That's a patent log. Before the advent of transistors, we used to stream a log behind the boat to see how much progress we had made in miles through the water for dead reckoning purposes. Matched set of brothers and matched wool plaid shirts. They were great things. Don't see them anymore. All this from passing an 8mm movie camera around from hand to hand. Each roll of film in the camera was 50 feet long and took 3 minutes of film. Oops. We saw the other families everywhere we went. We sort of followed them in and out of the harbors where we anchored for the night, went shopping for food. They were everywhere. We had a spinnaker too, which I'd forgotten, even on Tina. I think in this sequence we're probably flying the spinnaker as we make another heroic day's journey into some Connecticut harbor, possibly Milford, Connecticut. It was kind of a show-off thing to come into harbor with the spinnaker flying. Well, we knew how to do it, and we did it pretty well, I think. I was certainly interested. And I suppose this is the finish line. And I guess we beat that boat in. Pretty competitive family on the whole. And after a day's sailing, when you got to one of these harbors, this is Stonington, Connecticut, I think it's going to say, on the stern of this cute tug that used to take people ashore. You see the kid driving it? I hated him with a passion. I remember very little about the summer except him. I was filled with envy. This bratty Connecticut kid got to drive as his summer job a miniature tugboat with a real throttle assembly. I don't think I looked at him. I just got off the boat with my brother and went ashore. The sign on that boat, by the way, if you stop the tape, says, rides 10 cents per person. Watching these movies is like visiting a nautical history museum. That's one of the new boats that was coming in, an all fiberglass Triton class sloop. Fiberglass. Most of the boats around us were made of wood, beautifully kept. Tina was made of wood, spruce masts, canvas decks. Had to be painted and revarnished every year. That hatch cover you'll see from time to time, I varnished myself at least 6 times. And although these boats didn't have much in the way of accommodation by today's standards, they were low to the water and sleek and beautiful. You know, I think this is a mix of movies found in the vault. Jeff looks younger there than he does in some of the other pictures, but the boat's the same, so it's all within a 2-year period because that's how long the Williams family had Tina, the Herreshoff Ketch. The more I think about it, the more I marvel at my mother's incredible equilibrium. She never got sick. She never complained. These were fun times for a family. They weren't supposed to be great adventures. We only went 10, 20, 30 miles a day, but this is what it was like oftentimes, beating to windward all afternoon. And since these boats' decks leaked, everything got wet. And we'd wind up in yet another beautiful harbor, start the outboard. Visit the Museum of Ancient Yachts, which was contemporary yachts in those days, and get prepared for a biggest surprise of my life, because you see that boat there, that greenish boat, that funny looking boat. I was astonished to see that boat afloat, because when I met that boat, which became known as East Wind, it was sunk in the Rawway River behind my aunt's house. Sunk right on the hardscrabble bottom with the tide going in and out. It had been an old oyster boat, and my father bought it for $300 and raised it up using pumps and 55-gallon drums. That's me, between the gaff and the boom in the 5th grade. Look at the oil. We scraped all of the oil off of there with a substance called gunk. It took months. My father rebuilt the boat. There was rot inside. I think he was a young doctor without a big practice. We got her sailing, though, painted up. Had some fun in her for about 2 years. This was before the Duchess, the Dutch Treat, and before Tina. And that boat became the logotype of my company when I got to California. But this is a story mostly about Tina, one of my favorite boats because it was so pretty. Harbor to harbor in the summer. As a junior and senior in high school, I, of course, had lots of arguments with my father, but I wanted to learn everything that he knew about sailing. And since he was a sergeant, he was pretty good at whipping the ends of ropes. I can still do that today, but, with modern ropes, there's absolutely no need for it. So I don't know who I'm going to teach that to. Life down below was Dinty Moore beef stew, the occasional pot of spaghetti, and I don't think anybody ever helped my mother clean up the dishes once, there being no girls. High schoolers. All muscles and no brains. But this was a great thing to do, not dangerous at all. It slowed the boat down remarkably when you popped over the stern for a tow on some hot summer day. I took most of these movies. And most of this is uncut. There are lots of trims, but the shots you see are shots I made at age 17 or 18, following, actually, all the modern rules of film technique, because film was expensive, the time was short, and you were economical in shooting, unlike today's video cameras. Okay. 4 frames of Bill Cleveland and me playing the guitar just popped up in the middle of these old rolls. No explanation needed. Except I think if the Kingston Trio lost 2 of their members to death, we would have stepped right in. On Long Island, which of course is the other side from Connecticut of Long Island Sound, this was a great harbor called the Sand Pit at Port Jefferson, and I'm struck by how few yachts there were. We had the place to ourselves. There was a small club of yachtsmen, yachting families. Small because everybody had to work so hard and spend so much time and energy and money maintaining these boats for just a 3 or 4 month summer season in New York and New Jersey. This cruise is coming to an end because you can see the UN building in the background. We're returning on the East River. We kept the boat in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, which is across from the end of Staten Island, across the Kilvon Cull, so that when we left to go to Long Island Sound, we sailed out toward Sandy Hook, made a left turn at the Statue of Liberty, went under the Verrazano Bridge, up the East River, past City Island, and into Long Island Sound. And we took this for granted, sailing under the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge. I slept through many of them. When you saw Great Bed's Light, it meant you were home. Coiling lines, finishing off another summer cruise. Imagine a week or 2 with your family on a very small boat. A couple of years later, my brother was in Vietnam fighting a war. Those same years, I was in Europe trying to find a career. Memory changes things, but when I hear the sound of a projector, it's like the movie comes back to life. No sound, just pictures and memories.